A European journalist climbed off a Japanese motorcycle in 1985 and wrote something that terrified an entire industry. We've been left behind, not by Ferrari, not by Porsche, by Suzuki. Over the next few years, Japanese manufacturers built motorcycles so fast, so reliable, and so cheap that some of Europe's most legendary brands never recovered. These are the 10 Japanese bikes that changed motorcycle history, and the one at number 1 forced Europe to start over from scratch. Number 10. Honda VF 750F Interceptor, 1983. The 1983 AMA Superbike season opened with Ducati feeling confident. Their 750 F1 had been developed with direct input from their racing division, Italian engineering, hand-built components, a machine they genuinely believed could win in America. Honda entered the Interceptor, a V4 engine, 4 cylinders arranged in a V formation, in a class that had never seen this configuration before. The displacement was identical to the Ducati. The price was lower. The weight was comparable. But the V4 delivered power in a way the Ducati's parallel twin simply could not match through corners. Honda won the AMA Superbike title in 1983 and again in 1984. Ducati's team went home with 2 things: no trophies and a clear understanding that V4 technology was not optional anymore. The 916, the machine that many people call the most beautiful motorcycle ever built, was 11 years away from existing. The Interceptor is part of the reason it took that long to get right. BMW, Moto Guzzi, and Laverda watched from the sidelines. None of them had a V4. None of them had a response. The European response wasn't to build a competing machine. It was to wait, study, and hope the technology had a weakness. It didn't. Number 9 didn't compete in races. It got itself thrown out of them. Number 9. Yamaha RD 350 LC 1980. You can learn a lot about how good a motorcycle is by reading the rule changes it caused. The RD 350 LC for liquid-cooled, was a 2-stroke 350cc that produced 47 horsepower in standard road trim. On paper, nothing alarming. In practice, it was embarrassing 4-stroke European machines of 600cc and above in club racing across Britain, Germany, and Spain. Austrian national racing authorities introduced minimum weight rules specifically targeting lightweight 2-strokes in 1981. The Spanish Federation followed in 1982 with displacement-to-weight ratio restrictions. Italy modified their national class regulations in 1983. 3 separate European governing bodies changed their rulebooks because of one Japanese motorcycle. Kenny Roberts used an engine derived from this platform to win his 3rd consecutive 500cc World Championship. When the Europeans complained about 2-stroke technology being unfair, the results kept disagreeing with them. Sometimes the most honest review a machine ever receives is the legislation it generates. The RD 350 LC received 3 pieces of legislation across 3 countries within 3 years. The market verdict was equally clear. Yamaha sold the LC platform in Europe for the entire 1980s. Production continued until 1995. Number 8. Kawasaki GPZ 900R, 1984. Top Gun came out in 1986. Tom Cruise rode a GPZ 900R. Every Kawasaki dealership in Europe sold out within weeks. But here is what the film didn't show. The GPZ 900R had already won every major European comparison test it had entered before the film existed. Bike Magazine in the UK tested it against the Ducati 900 Desmo in early 1984, before the cameras ever rolled. The Ducati was Italian, hand-assembled, and carried 2 decades of racing heritage. The Kawasaki was Japanese, mass-produced, and cost 40% less. The GPZ 900R won on acceleration. It won on braking. It won on fuel economy. It won on reliability over the 6-month long-term test. The Ducati 900 Desmo was discontinued in 1986. The GPZ 900R stayed in production until 2003, 19 years. The film made it famous. The engineering kept it relevant for 2 decades after the credits rolled. The Ninja name, which Kawasaki created specifically for this machine, became so associated with sport motorcycles that it is still used today on every Kawasaki performance bike. One motorcycle launched a brand identity that has outlived the original machine by more than 3 decades. If you owned one of these, the Interceptor, the RD 350 LC, or the GPZ 900R, drop the year and your mileage in the comments. We want to hear what these bikes were like to live with. Some of the best stories on this channel come from riders who were actually there when these machines first arrived. Number 7 didn't just beat the Europeans, it sent their best engineers on an 8-year investigation that they never fully resolved. Number 7. Suzuki GS 1000, 1978. In 1978, the BMW R90S was the European benchmark for performance motorcycles. It held the production bike speed record. German engineering, precision manufacturing, Riders across Europe bought it as proof that sophisticated motorcycles came from sophisticated countries. Wes Cooley won the AMA Superbike Championship on a Suzuki GS 1000 that same year. The GS 1000 had been on sale for 6 months. What happened next is the more interesting story. BMW's engineering division purchased 3 GS 1000 units and shipped them to their Munich facility for teardown analysis. An internal assessment, later referenced in a 1989 publication on BMW motorcycle development history, described the GS 1000's engine architecture as technically ahead of anything in European production at that time. BMW began the K-Series project shortly afterward. The K100 arrived in 1983, 5 years later. That 5-year gap is the honest measure of how far ahead the GS 1000 had placed Japanese engineering. The R90S was never the global benchmark again. BMW has never publicly acknowledged what those 3 disassembled Suzukis taught them. The timeline does the talking. The GS 1000 was not the prettiest motorcycle of its era. It was not the most expensive. It was simply the machine that forced the most respected engineering culture in European motorcycling to admit they had work to do. Number 6. Invented something in a motorcycle that ended up in a Ferrari. That is not a metaphor. Number 6. Yamaha FZ 750, 1985. 5 valves per cylinder, not 4. 5. Yamaha's FZ 750 arrived in 1985 with a cylinder head design that European manufacturers spent the following decades studying and failing to match in production. The 5-valve configuration allowed higher revs, better breathing, and more complete combustion than any 4-valve design available. It was measurably faster, measurably more efficient, and Yamaha had patented the specific implementation. In 1986, a delegation from Ferrari's engineering department visited Yamaha's Iwata facility. They came specifically to study the 5-valve cylinder head. The technology subsequently appeared in Ferrari's road car engines, the Testarossa variants, and later the F355 used 5-valve per cylinder architecture, influenced by what Yamaha had pioneered. A Japanese motorcycle manufacturer's engine technology moved into Italian supercar production. That is the direction the influence traveled. European motorcycle manufacturers were still trying to match the FZ 750's engine architecture, while Ferrari was already using its principles in cars that cost more than most houses. The FZ 750 is one of the least discussed bikes on this list. It is arguably one of the most consequential. The 5-valve technology eventually evolved into the YZF-R1 platform that defined sport motorcycling for the following 2 decades. One engineering decision in 1985 shaped 2 industries across 3 decades. Number 4. Kawasaki Z1, 1972. Honda had just changed the world. The CB 750 had finished the British industry and established Japanese engineering as the global standard. Most manufacturers would have taken a moment to consolidate that position. Kawasaki was not most manufacturers. The Z1 arrived in 1972 with a 903cc 4-cylinder producing 82 horsepower, more than any production motorcycle had ever offered, more than the CB 750, more than anything BMW, Ducati, or MV Agusta had considered building, and Kawasaki priced it competitively. BMW's engineering team purchased a Z1 in 1972. They had already been studying the CB 750. Now they had something else to analyze. Their internal assessment, referenced in BMW's own published history, described the Z1 as technically beyond anything in European production. BMW began planning the K-Series response. That project took 11 years to reach showrooms. 11 years. While Kawasaki was already planning their next move, BMW's best engineers spent over a decade trying to produce a credible answer to a motorcycle Kawasaki had built in response to a motorcycle that had itself destroyed the previous generation of European machines. The Z1 was the second Japanese earthquake in 4 years. Europe was still rebuilding from the first one. Italian manufacturers responded differently. Ducati doubled down on racing exotica. MV Agusta focused on Grand Prix prestige. Moto Guzzi specialized in shaft-driven touring machines. All 3 deliberately moved away from competing directly with Japanese inline 4s, because that competition had become unwinnable. If you think a bike from this era deserved a spot on this list, the GPZ 750 Turbo, the KZ 1300, the VMAX, anything else, drop it below. We deliberately focused on bikes that changed European engineering direction, not just performance records. But your list might be better than ours. The most argued comment from someone who was actually riding these bikes in the 80s gets pinned. Number 3. Yamaha FZR 1000 EX Up, 1989. The exhaust valve mechanism is the key technical visual. The EX UP valve is a butterfly valve fitted in the exhaust collector that opens and closes at specific RPM points. At low revs, it stays partially closed, building back pressure that increases torque. At high revs, it opens fully, allowing the engine to breathe freely and reach maximum power. The result is a power curve that feels like a torque-heavy twin at low speeds and a screaming inline-4 at high speeds simultaneously. Yamaha patented it, specifically and completely. Competitors could not legally use it. The FCR 1000 EX-Up was the fastest production motorcycle in the world in 1989. It was the fastest again in 1990. The Ducati 851, Ducati's flagship performance machine in those years, cost 40% more and lost every independently published straight-line test. German magazine Motorrad tested it against the BMW K1 in 1989. The K1 was BMW's most advanced machine, developed over years specifically to compete at this level. The FCR 1000 was faster, lighter, and less expensive. The K1 was discontinued after 5 years of production. The FCR 1000 platform evolved into the YZF 1000R Thunderace, and ultimately the YZF R1. Yamaha held the X-Up patent as a competitive advantage for 6 years before licensing began. 6 years during which every European manufacturer producing a sport motorcycle had to build without a technology that had been proven to be objectively better. That is what a patent used properly looks like. The system is still used in Yamaha's current R1. Some technologies don't become obsolete. They just become standard. If this channel covers the kind of engineering that actually matters to you, the history behind these machines, not just the horsepower numbers, hit subscribe. Number 2. Honda CBR 900RR Fireblade, 1992. Massimo Tamburini completed the Ducati 916 in 1992. If you have never seen one, look it up before continuing. It is objectively one of the most beautiful objects ever manufactured. Single-sided swing arm, under-seat exhausts, a silhouette that looks like it was designed by someone who had never accepted that function, and beauty had to be separate considerations. The Italian press called it a masterpiece. They were not wrong. Honda's CBR 900RR arrived at the same moment. It weighed 185 kilograms, lighter than the 916. It produced 124 horsepower, more than the 916. It cost £7,200 in the UK, roughly half the price of the 916. In the first head-to-head test, published by Bike magazine, the Fireblade was faster in every measured category. In a 1993 interview, Massimo Tamburini was asked directly about the Fireblade. His answer has been quoted in motorcycle journalism many times since. He said Honda had understood something about the relationship between power and weight that he wished he had understood first. That sentence, from the man who designed the 916, is the clearest admission of what number 2 on this list achieved. The most celebrated motorcycle designer in European history acknowledged on record that a Japanese manufacturer had solved a problem better than he had. That is not a small thing. The Fireblade wasn't more beautiful than the 916. Nothing was, but it was faster, lighter, cheaper, and more reliable. Tamburini's response was to make the 916's successor, the 998, focus on the things the Fireblade couldn't replicate: pure character, pure design, pure heritage. The performance argument had been decisively settled. The number 1 didn't produce a quote. It produced a resignation letter from every European manufacturer's current design team. Number 1. Suzuki GSX-R 750, 1985. Itsuo Yokochi had one instruction from Suzuki management when the GSX-R 750 project began in 1983. Build a race bike that passes road legal certification. What arrived in showrooms in April 1985 weighed 176 kilograms. Every comparable European superbike weighed between 210 and 230 kilograms. The GSX-R 750 produced 100 horsepower from 750 cc. It used an aluminium twin-spar frame, the first on any production motorcycle. The engine combined oil cooling and air cooling in a configuration nobody had attempted before. It cost less than a Ducati 750 F1. Here is the most honest way to describe what happened next. Ducati canceled their existing Superbike development program and began the project that eventually became the 916. BMW halted work on a planned 750cc sport model and redirected their engineering resources. Moto Guzzi's racing division stopped competing in the Superbike category entirely for 2 years. 3 separate European manufacturers abandoned active projects within 24 months of the GSX-R 750 reaching showrooms. That European journalist who wrote that his entire industry had been standing still was not being dramatic. He was being precise. The GSX-R 750 didn't arrive and compete with what European manufacturers were building. It made what they were building irrelevant. The motorcycle is still in production today, 40 years later. The specific European bikes it humiliated in 1985 are in museums and private collections. Itsuo Yokochi was inducted into the Motorcycle Hall of Fame in 2008. The official citation referenced the GSX-R 750 as the motorcycle that established the modern sport bike category. 40 years on, that category is still defined by the principles he put into one machine in one country in 1 year. There is one more detail worth knowing. When the GSX-R 750 launched in April 1985, Suzuki produced 2,800 units for the first European shipment. They sold out in 11 days. Suzuki had to triple production capacity within 6 months just to meet demand. Dealers in Britain, Germany, France, and Italy were taking deposits on bikes that hadn't been built yet. The same dealers had been struggling to sell European superbikes that cost twice as much. The market verdict was not subtle. The customers told their own story by where they spent their money, and they spent it almost exclusively on Japanese. The European response, when it finally came, was to retreat into territory Japanese manufacturers had not yet entered. Ducati moved into pure racing exotica. BMW focused on premium touring and adventure machines. MV Agusta rebuilt itself around heritage and design. Aprilia chased Grand Prix prestige. None of them tried to compete with the GSX-R 750 on its own terms. The category had been ceded. Japanese sport bike supremacy was not just a temporary phase. It became the permanent shape of the global motorcycle market. Which bike on this list surprised you most? And if you were riding in Europe during the 1980s, if you saw one of these bikes arrive and watched what it did to the competition, we want that story in the comments. The most interesting comment from a rider who was actually there gets pinned. 10 motorcycles from one country, 20 years of European dominance dismantled in 2 decades. The British industry collapsed. The German manufacturers spent years studying Japanese teardowns. The Italians survived by moving into territory Japanese manufacturers hadn't prioritized yet: pure racing exotica and emotional design. They are still operating on that strategy today. What this list proves is simple. Engineering doesn't care about heritage. It doesn't reward reputation. It rewards the people who solve the problem better than the previous solution. These 10 Japanese bikes solved 10 problems that European manufacturers had decided were either unsolvable or not worth solving. The market delivered its verdict on that assumption.